it's a thrill to be with members of the Notre Dame family. Certainly wish that we could be together in person, but it's good even if it's a virtual engagement, given the times. It was really an inspiration to see a number of you speaking from all over the world, all over the country, seeing the absolute wonderful work that you do in living out Father Soren's vision of being forces for good in a world that is more than ever deeply in need. So we're grateful for your leadership. We're grateful for your loyalty and your allegiance to the university. We're even grateful for the ways that you try to hold us to the highest ideals, asking us to be better, to live out Notre Dame's vision and mission more fully. And we really appreciate all of your feedback, your leadership, and your engagement, even tuning in with us tonight. It's a pleasure to be at the university. It's also, as Dolly said, a thrill to be a parent. This has been a tumultuous semester. It's brought a lot of challenges with this crisis that we are experiencing right now. The global pandemic, all the economic dislocation for so many families, and of course, all of the racial unrest as well. It's my pleasure now, and indeed honor, to introduce to you a distinguished class of 1976 and class of 1978, where he did both his undergraduate degree and his master's degree in philosophy. And he happens now to be the 17th president of the University of Notre Dame. Please join me in welcoming Father John I. Jenkins. Welcome, Father John.
Thanks, Lou. Great to be with you and great to be with the Notre Dame alumni family.
We get a number of questions, but I'm going to start out with one that is probably on most everyone's mind. Recently, you've experienced your own health setback, and people want to know, how are you feeling, and any reflections that you might have from the past challenging few weeks.
Well, sure, Lou, I feel fine. Thank you very much. My symptoms were not so bad that I got through it pretty well with a fever. I had fatigue, but doing well now. And so thanks for asking, and thanks for the wonderful shows of concern and prayers from the whole Notre Dame family. As you mentioned, a lot of attention was focused on the White House event. I do want to say I'm proud of our alumna and faculty member, Amy Barrett, for being selected for the Supreme Court. But I'm not proud of my behavior and not wearing a mask and being at the White House, and apologize for that. But we're moving on, and it's a challenging time, and I think the people on campus are just showing such dedication to get through this tough period.
Thanks, Father John. We're going to move on to some questions that come from members of the Notre Dame family far and wide. And the first question seems to be a rather timely one. Let's play it.
Hi, I'm Avis Boyd, class of 82, and I come to you today from just outside of St. Cloud, Minnesota, in Sartell, Minnesota. My question, please address the prioritization and the changing state of the university where diversity, equity, and inclusion measures are concerned, since many of our stakeholders are really unaware. Thank you.
Avis, thanks for that question, and thanks for all your work in this area, and thanks for your challenges you've given us. There's nothing I've thought more about in the past months, next to the pandemic and opening in the midst of COVID, than the questions you've asked. And we've been working on this issue. I think it's important to acknowledge our feelings and our need to get better, and we have to do that, and recognize this is an opportunity. I really believe that it's an opportunity for us to improve. And just let me not be, this won't be an exhaustive list, but some of the things that are going on, I want people to know. We had our Black students have drawn our attention to a number of concerns. One of them is about policing. That's sort of so central to the terrible incidents of George Floyd and Breonna Turner, and what can we do at Notre Dame to make sure our policing and security is fair and equitable? And I give credit to our students and credit to our Notre Dame Police Department, Carrie K. Shibata, who's our police chief, to engage in conversations and to acknowledge the feelings, but to formulate a set of policies, very concrete, that will ensure equitable, fair policing here on campus, that people are treated fairly no matter what group they're from. So that's one thing. There's been extensive conversation about what sort of classes, what sort of discussions, what sort of things can we do with our students to increase an awareness of what we call cultural competency, to treat everyone equitably and with respect. We've been doing that, but we can improve, and there's been a lot of conversation there. Marilyn Miranda, from whom you'll hear later, has met with all our faculty from underrepresented groups and spoken with them, heard their concerns, and also emphasized with our deans and our colleges and departments the importance of hiring faculty from underrepresented groups, and I think we've seen some fruit from those discussions. We're not hiring too much in our staff right now with the economic situation, but we have policies in place where our pools for hiring must be diverse, where if we're going to have training programs to help people become managers and directors, those groups must be diverse. So those are some of the things we're working on. And one of the things I've asked and Jack Brennan, our board chair, we've worked together on, is to create a committee, an ad hoc task force of trustees. It is led by Byron Spruill, a Notre Dame graduate who is currently vice president of the NBA, very involved in the recent season, and a number of other trustees who are really knowledgeable about and committed to equity and diversity and inclusion. What I've asked them to do is just take a look at all aspects of our work here at Notre Dame. Give us a report. Tell us how we can improve. Tell us where the blind spots are. Tell us how we can get better. And so they're working on that now. I know they're working very hard on that. And I hope to have a report in the new year with recommendations. And I assure you, we will listen to what is said, and we will continue to try to make Notre Dame the diverse, equitable, inclusive place it is called to be.
Thank you, Avis, for that question. Thanks, Father John, for your response. The next question we don't have on video, but it also comes from the Notre Dame family and is related. The question is this: beyond Notre Dame, 2020 has highlighted the importance that all of us are to speak up and participate in addressing broader societal injustices. What more do you feel that the university can do to help highlight and address the broader issues of discrimination and inequity in our society?
Well, it's a great question. Thanks for the question. A lot of things. Again, I have to mention our new provost, Marilyn Miranda, so committed and creative in this area. And Marilyn has formulated an initiative, very broad, multifaceted initiative called Moment to See, Courage to Act, on this issue of racial inequity on social justice. And there are many aspects to it, and I'm not going to go through them all, but one interesting one, and I think this is a good challenge for our university. You know, we have great relationships with the local community, with South Bend and the region, and they have been improving, and our work together is really move forward, and there's a lot of vitality in the local community, but there's a lot of poverty, and there's a lot of racial inequity in the community. And so, you know, those are areas I think we can work on. Do I have a plan detail right now? No, but they are areas we can give attention to and move forward on. I want to mention the Klaus Center for Civil and Human Rights, a center that was dear to Father Hesburgh's heart, that is now directed by Professor Jennifer Mason McAward from our law school. And Jen is really focused on issues of racial justice. She has a really interesting series now of speakers. She has everyone from Archbishop Wilton Gregory of Washington to Nicole Hannah-Jones, a Pulitzer Prize winner and another graduate, to talk about anti-racism. How can we not simply be not racist, but against kind of racist structures. So those are some of the things, both through the action of the university as an institution and our research. Those are examples of things we can do. But I'd also just say every Notre Dame graduate can be part of this conversation to achieve greater equity, greater respect for all people, to overcome the legacy of racism. These are all part of what we should be doing as members of the Notre Dame family, and we will work on it here. I urge all of us to work on these critical issues for our nation, for everyone, every one of us.
Thanks, Father John. The next question is about academics during the pandemic.
Good.
My name is Maggie Roque. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and graduated in 2015. My question is, are there any areas within Notre Dame academics that have unexpectedly flourished under these unprecedented circumstances? What feedback have you received from the faculty about hybrid and remote learning? While I can only assume it has hindered many tasks and objectives, has it provided any unique and beneficial opportunities for the professors and our students? Thank you.
Thanks for that great question. One thing I will say right off the bat is our students and faculty agree that distance remote learning just isn't a substitute for in-person learning. And our students are happy to be back, happy to be in class, and our faculty feel that way too. However, sometimes if a student is in quarantine or in isolation, it's necessary to, or if a faculty member has a health condition that doesn't allow them to teach in person, it's necessary to teach remotely. And our faculty have been very creative in trying to move their classes to a remote framework. And so I think that's interesting and important that we acquire these skills and ability, both technological infrastructure as well as pedagogical skills that allow us to do remote teaching, even though it isn't quite what in-person teaching is. There's been some very interesting research, I'd say, around this. A couple of our professors did some really interesting research on masks, on what masks are effective and what can prevent the spread of disease, and just did some really interesting work on that to kind of identify the masks that are effective. There's been some interesting work on wastewater testing as a way to identify if there is an outbreak in a dorm or a particular place. And so there's a lot of work on that. I would say mainly what I've seen this semester, and it's been a tough semester in so many ways. It's been hard and people have been asked to do so much, but a remarkable coming together of students and faculty and graduate students who serve as instructors in classes to help to adapt to the current situation and help our students learn. It is the creativity, the commitment, the imaginativeness of so many people is truly remarkable. And so if there's one thing I'd point to in the issue of teaching, it's that. It's just that the deep dedication to deal with the limitations, but do it in a creative way together so that Notre Dame can be a place of learning even in this time of pandemic.
Thanks, Maggie, for your question. The next question, Father John, has to do with the impact of COVID-19 on the university.
Good evening. My name is Tim Chen. I'm with the Quad Cities Club, and I have a question, Father Jenkins, about COVID-19. It has impacted every aspect of institutions of higher learning across the country, and especially profound impacts on the financial well-being of universities and colleges. So what has the financial impact been on Notre Dame and the overall financial health of the university?
Tim, that's a great question. Another question we think a lot about. And you're right, it has impacted every institution of higher education dramatically. And it has impacted Notre Dame. But I would say Notre Dame is blessed, and I can't take credit for this. This is before me, with a kind of far-sighted and responsible approach to finances that, we don't live on the edge. So if we're hit by a crisis, we can find a way to to manage it. Now, this crisis has hit us. If you watch our football games, you see the stadium just has students. It's pretty empty, and that's a lot of people who would visit campus, buy a ticket, visit the bookstore, eat at the Morrison or stay at the Morrison. That's not happening, and that's a big impact. There's also a tremendous amount of expense with giving tests for COVID to our students, faculty, staff, with various precautionary measures we have to take. That's draining a lot of dollars. So it is a real challenge. But what we've done, no salary increases for faculty and staff this past year. That's been difficult, but it's allowed us to save some money. We froze staff hiring. We pulled back on building projects. We implemented a 5% budget reduction. Now, I'm very proud of the fact that we've laid no one off and we put no one on furlough. That's really important. Everybody's a member of the Notre Dame family, and we want to keep them employed and keep them part of this family. So we're proud of that. But because of these steps, because of these reductions, we were able to end fiscal year 2020, that ended July 1st, with a balanced budget, because we were able to make some cuts and save some money and balance. Now, big challenge in the coming year because there's even greater expenses and more difficulties. But I think we'll be able to weather it, not without loss, not without a great amount of trouble, but again, because we've been farsighted in our planning, that and frankly, because of the tremendous generosity of you, the Notre Dame family, particularly for financial aid, which that is also a greater cost now because more families are struggling. But because of your generosity and because of good management, I think we'll get through this, not without difficulty, but I'm confident we will.
Good to see you, Tim. Tim and I were fellow Sorenites back in the day. The next question, Father John, has to do with admissions and financial aid.
I'm Louis Lamoya. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and I graduated from University of Notre Dame in 1966. And my question is, what is being done about the fact that the tuition costs have surpassed what the middle-class Notre Dame family can easily afford?
Well, thanks for that question, and that's a question we think a lot about. And what we've been able to do because of the generosity of so many people, have what we call a need-blind admission policy that admits students regardless of their ability to pay. And then we have a formula. It's a government formula for what a family can afford to pay. So given what a family's resources are, what can they afford to pay? And we provide financial aid to cover the rest. 48% of our current undergraduate freshman class is on that need-based aid. And the median award is $47,000, so it's quite significant. And 25% of the current freshman class on such aid come from families that make in excess of $200,000. So it's not the case that financial aid only goes to the poorest families and the poorest students. We try to estimate what a family's needs are and provide what we can to help that student come to Notre Dame and flourish at Notre Dame. And many of the students who receive aid are students from what clearly middle class or even upper middle class families, but they have needs, and so we try to meet those needs. I know, and I don't want to sound glib, because I know the sacrifices families make to send their son or daughter to Notre Dame are really great. I know that, and I know the sacrifices are great. But at the same time, economists will tell you that, the earning power for a graduate from a school like Notre Dame is $1 million, they'll say. That's roughly the figure they give in enhanced earning power. The full cost of a Notre Dame education is about a quarter of that. So for a family to give a child a gift that will, in the course of that person's lifetime, provide goods 4 times of what they pay for that gift, that's a great legacy to leave for young people. And that's what my parents, I come from a family of 12, they made tremendous sacrifices to educate us, but there's no greater gift that I received from my family than the education that they gave me. And I think that's true of many people. So we do try to make Notre Dame accessible to everyone who's admitted to Notre Dame, and many of those are from middle-class families, and we'll continue to try to do that.
It has to do with the current state of politics in our country.
Good evening. My name is Jose Contreras, class of 1994, coming to you from South Texas, the Notre Dame Club of Rio Grande Valley. Father John, our question is as such. It is becoming abundantly clear that the sanctity of bipartisan leadership has been shelved by political divide and daily out-of-control spin from both major parties. Extremism and even moderate polar identity is clashing daily, knocking on the doors of both social and political civil war. How can ND institutionally fight to balance our young adults so that the only radical movement is to undefine extreme party affiliation, encourage meaningful intellectual conversation, find the middle, and embrace the best ideas of both sides of any aisle in the spirit of true social and national progress?
Jose, that's a great question, and it's something that's really close to my heart. I think it's so important for us. I read an article recently that angry voters are loyal voters, and so there's an incentive for politicians to make their constituencies angry at the other side, and we see that a lot in our country. But the problem is, angry voters don't trust government, and so it's hard to you just get gridlocked. So I would say that the thing to do is don't let people make you hate people who you don't agree with. I mean, we all have to work on that. I can disagree with people. I can disagree passionately, but I shouldn't let myself hate them because I think there's a lot of politics of hate of the other side, both sides. And I'm not talking about one side or the other, both sides. That destroys government and our ability to work together to solve problems. We must overcome that. So that's the one thing I'd say. Let's overcome that each individually and engage one another reasonably, not with politics of hate.
Thank you, Jose, for your question. Thank you all. Thanks, Father John, for this time tonight. We deeply value and appreciate your humble yet extraordinary leadership. Now in the 16th year of your presidency, know that our prayers are with you. Before I sign off with Father John, I just want to invite all of you to join us next Monday and Tuesday night from 6:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time until midnight, where we will have multiple hours of broadcast for Notre Dame Day, where many different compelling stories about Notre Dame and its varied dimensions will be shared. And it's an opportunity for you to support your alumni clubs or any other area of priority as well at the university at any level. So thank you all again. And for Father John and myself, our prayers are with all of you and also our deep appreciation.
Thank you, Lou. Thanks, everyone.